Let's talk about social media platforms and research. First thing you want to know is, where is your ideal patient spending time? Now, obviously, we're going to do a lot of that research, but we're doing it on a more national scale. You might want to do it on a local scale. You might want to find out just where people that you want to interact with are hiding. So go where they are. Don't try and get them to where you want to work. Does that make sense? And because there's hundreds, don't spend a week doing research. Just kind of pick maybe the top 10 places that you've heard of, that you found interesting, or that somebody mentioned. Do a little interaction. Find out what they're doing there. Find out when they're there. Find out as much as you can. Engage with them a little bit. Ask some questions. See why people interact. If you're on Pinterest and you see all this activity around an image, and you're going, what is going on? Interact a little bit. Say, hey, I'm telling you this. For the person who has what's called a board, you can contact them. What do you think made that happen? I don't know. Yes, that's something that you can converse with and give some ideas. So it's certainly worth doing that. Look for those responses. Look for what gets activity. Look for what just died and you see nothing happen on. And just make notes for that. If you don't want to do all the research, look at your peers. Normally I say, whatever you see being done in marketing in your industry, or you see being done over and over again, do the opposite. That'll probably work. There are some pretty good companies right now that are running social media. So it's not as cut and dry where you can say, yeah, do the opposite. It'll probably work. You want to actually do a little research on what other people are doing. And I would do it outside of the community, see what people outside of the area are doing and what you're seeing. And look for that interaction point and then you start copying. Now, when you went to school, looking over the other person's task was called cheating, right? When we're in business now, what is that called? Smart. Right. Yeah, borrow, steal, whatever you want to call it. If you're completely stealing it and not writing it yourself, give them credit. Everybody wins. As long as you give people credit, put a little link in there, everybody's happy. All right. Let's talk about Facebook fan pages. Does everyone know the difference between a profile and a page? A few head nods, a couple of white eyes. So very quickly, a personal profile is what you have your Facebook fan page, or excuse me, your Facebook profile is around your person. In order to get what's called a profile, you have to be a real person. Now, yes, we set up all kinds of fake accounts all the time, but I have to use proxies to hide who I am and where I'm doing it because they get shut down. It's not a real person. And it doesn't take a long time for them to find it. But yours might become really fast. Now, so a profile has to be a person. A fan page is your business. So you can do whatever you want business-wise there. You still need to follow some basic terms of service, but you can, that's your business. And I do recommend that you set up a personal profile and then create a fan page attached to your profile. Now, about 6 years ago, you had to do that. Then they decided, well, if you're a big corporation, you're probably not going to want one person who's need the profile owner. So what was happening was big corporations were just making up profiles and they so they made it so that you can set up a fan page without a personal profile. That can be done. I still like to connect them to your personal profile because we keep seeing them change what you can and can't do on your fan page, depending on whether or not it's connected to a personal profile. So who knows what they'll say, oh, you can't do that anymore, you not connect to it. Facebook just kind of keeps changing things, so we find that whenever it's connected to a personal profile, everything seems to work just fine. So that's probably a better way to go. But you can just do a fan page without. That makes sense? Clear as mud? 1.01 billion users as of September. That's a lot of people. A lot of people. You might want to be there. Average user spends 7.25 hours on Facebook. And that was in August of 2011. This is per month. Yeah. That would be amazing. All right, average age of Facebook user rose from 33 in 2008 to 38 in 2010, and you saw the data that the 60 and over crowd is the fastest growing in social media, so that number continues to grow. So it is absolutely good target market. Average user has 229 friends. Does anyone have more than that? Anyone in here have like more than 229 friends? Just curious. That's a lot of people to be friends with. And I find that my nieces and nephews that kind of grew up with this stuff, they've got 600, 700, and they don't know more than 10. But they interact with 600 or 700 people every day. So think about that. Let's say I've got 600 or 700, maybe 150 to 200 are actually in the community that is within your market range. So anything that they share or like or comment on immediately goes to them. So there's a lot of value there. People still love to hate Facebook. Has anyone heard that Facebook is going away? Oh, that's going to end. Oh, we're not going to use that anymore. I'm hearing it a lot. I've actually had a few clients say, I keep hearing from our smart computer type guys that Facebook is dying. It has 1.01 billion users. They spend 15.5 minutes every day on it. It is not going away. People love to hate it. Love to hate it. My wife, fascinating. She has this love-hate relationship with Facebook. And she spends a lot of time on it. Now, granted, she does a lot of Facebook work for our clients, because she's a mom, and I want her thoughts and her input in working on all of this. But half the time that she does it for personal use, she's not happy after. She feels like, this person's doing all that. This person, why do you do that to yourself? It's fascinating. And then we get a lot of complaints about this, being able to protect your person, being able to protect your information, because privacy on Facebook, and we'll talk about some of the new stuff from Facebook that happened this week, is making privacy pretty much go away. And they're sneaking it in, making it sound really cool. We'll talk about it. People love to hate it. They're not dying. LinkedIn. Everyone's heard of LinkedIn. I like LinkedIn. It is geared towards business. All right, so a lot less business to consumer activity going on. Doesn't mean there's none, but less. Some really say that it's absolutely worth the effort because there's not a lot of competition there. So if you are one orthodontist or dentist that is spending time utilizing LinkedIn and pushing a consistent message and really kind of understands how that LinkedIn messaging works, because it is different than other social media. It is more on a professional level. It's less sort of conscious, but the transparency part's still there. So that's part of your strategy. That can certainly work. It usually means that there's light value as well. And there's not a lot of competition because not a whole lot going on. All right, so I just want you to think through that. Make sure you complete your profile. Do have a LinkedIn profile. What we do find is if you have filled out your profile fully and you complete everything on there, and somebody searches for you directly, your LinkedIn profile has to show up for you. What's nice about LinkedIn too is that you can kind of set it all up, make sure it's 100% full, contact a whole bunch of your colleagues, that have some connections, and you're all over. So that's one way to look at it. Questions about LinkedIn? Let's talk about Google+. And I'm going to keep this relatively short. I think Google+, just for their search engine optimization value alone, now we talked about it briefly in answering the question. Google owns Google+, and I want you to think about Google+. They named it that way because essentially it's Google, it's their search, it's their data, it's their advertising plus. And the plus, what you need to be aware of is everything about you. I don't know if you all remember this, about 6-7 months ago, Google changed their terms of service and privacy policies. They used to have one for every single piece of their puzzle. So if you had Google Docs, if you had Google Plus, if you had Google Local, if you had any one of their services, which are all great. It really very effective. It used to be you would sign privacy and terms of service for each one. And you could change your privacy depending on which one. Well, they decided to make it all one. And it's really hard to change your privacy. So when that all happened, I went into a lot of my accounts, but client accounts, and turned on all the privacies. So that we had some control. Because once you turn it on, they make it really easy to turn it off and change it. If it's not on, they make it impossible to find. Now you can do it. It's going to take you a little time to kind of step through it. It will take way too long to try and show you how to do it here because they keep changing it. Because they don't want you to do it. They want every last little bit of information about you, about your activities, about what you are liking on Facebook, what you look at on Twitter, what you do every single time you open up your browser. They're tracking that. Now, does everyone here remember, like, let's say you log into Facebook, you log into Gmail, do you remember to log out every time? It's hard to remember. I'm logging in and out of accounts all day long, so it's easy for me to remember because I have to get help to get back in. I also do searches constantly, and I need to be able to kind of mask who I am so my activity doesn't change my search results. If you're not logging out, or you're not clearing out your cookies, clearing out your cache, they track every last little thing you do so that they can do what's called remarketing. Has anyone heard of this yet? Remarketing. So let's say, this is what's going on. Let's say you send me an email, and you send it to a Gmail account, and you say, hey, I was looking for a used car. Do you think this model or this model would be better? Guess who knows that? Guess who knows that you just asked about used cars and used models? Yeah. They buy it. They buy that information for themselves. So now you'll all of a sudden notice that you're getting all these ads for used car dealerships. Look at that. Oh, you sent an email that had used car dealerships. It's fascinating. Now, you can take advantage of that. If you want to be able to do Google AdWords, you want to serve up ads, you want to do marketing, it's a very powerful tool. But I do recommend that you log out of everything that you log into and you're done, because every last little thing is being tracked. Questions? Yeah?
How do you do that other than using like that advanced app killer? Because it's very rarely do I find a way to log out.
Yeah, but they don't make it like a big, hey, log out here. Usually the upper right-hand corner is a little copy button. It's generally what it's going to be. Or 3 lines. It's usually one of those two. It'll be in the upper right-hand corner, 3 lines, you click on it, it'll give you a drop down, or usually one of them sign out. Or it's like a cog wheel. Click on that and it'll be a sign out.
Is it as effective to use that mobile app killer so often?
On your phone?
Yeah.
You bet. You bet. There's nothing else to save your battery.
Yeah.
But yes, yeah, you can shut all those down. Otherwise, you're logged into, let's say you're logged into your Facebook account, and you start doing other activities, searches, guess who's watching? Yeah, because it's all within your app. Just on the side, does anyone in here have an app, an actual app for your business? No? Okay. We actually looked into that based on your question. The only reason we looked into it is because we realized that the brand new iPhones, when you use Siri, you talk to the phone and ask it for information, you pull data from your phone first. So if an orthodontist or dentist has an app on the phone, their data, their information, and you say, I need an emergency dentist or really need a good orthodontist, you're first. So that got my attention. Not sure how long that's going to last, because Apple has been under fire a little bit for some of the things they've just decided to do where it's about privacy. So we'll see how long that lasts. But it was an interesting stuff. One of the more powerful things for SEO is being able to connect your Google Plus business page to your website. Now, you've only been able to do what's called authorship. And that's where you see in the search results, you see that little image of somebody's face and the image of the you're hoping someone's going to click on it because yours looks a little different from the other. So there is some value to that. What we were always trying to figure out, trying to do for our clients is, can we make it a logo? Because authorship is not a logo. Authorship is a profile, it's a person. Well, we just discovered, this was just about a week ago, that they're letting you now connect as a business profile. So you can get your logo shown. Pretty nice little branding plan. Now we tested it, we pulled the data, we used this little service that Google provides to test that was called your snippet worked. And it worked. So now we're waiting to see if Google will start to show that in search results. We've never seen it yet. So we are really excited to see how this plays out, if they will affect the limited development in search results. We used to be able to get little 5 stars. You don't see those for reviews. You can get a little 5 star to show up on your search result. That's cool. You didn't have any reviews or anything. Oh, makes it look good. That's great. Well, people kind of said, you gotta actually have some kind of review system. Otherwise, they're not going to show it. So what that did was they pulled like almost everybody's. So if you were an actual review directory, it was hard not to show. It was fun for a while. So we always got to play around with that stuff. Google plus one. It's about social proof. Right? It's kind of like if you like a page on Facebook, that's saying, I want people to know I think they're great. Google plus one is the same kind of thing. The difference is Google sees it immediately. And oh, guess what? If you forgot to log out of your Gmail account or any of the Google accounts, you do a search, and you're a friend of mine, you're going to see what I plus one in your search result. So your search will then say plus one, and you can follow that and see if it did. That's pretty darn good social proof. So that's another reason to take advantage of Google Plus. It can't hurt, and it will. Okay. So Google Plus has all of these, their own terms. They have circles, which are ways to break up the people that are within your account. So instead of just this massive list of friends or people that have liked your page, you can have what are called circles. So you can have acquaintances, family, friends, businesses, it's unlimited. What that means is you can say, when I post this kind of information, I want to go to this kind of person. So you can actually segment your list, and that's a marketing term for deciding who gets what. You can do that right on Google. It's kind of nice. So it's a really nice little tool. Hangouts. Hangouts means that you can call me up and say, hey, I really need some help with something, and I say, hey, let's jump on a Google Hangout. Now, I see your video, you see my video, and then we can share a page on the screen. Kind of like Skype. Well, the difference is I can record. If you ever want to watch it again, it's on YouTube. Pretty nice. So that was something that they recently added. Because at first it was like, why would I use Google Hangout? It doesn't make any sense. I got Skype. I got 16 other ways to do that. But when they made it so you could click a button to record and then give somebody access. Or if I'm answering a very common question and I want other people to be able to access it, here you go. You're on Hangout. Record it. Here you go. So really nice.
Isn't that record the conversation between two people, so two people interact?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, it's great. You can kind of lay it out.
Say something like a doctor and like somebody in the office asking questions and answering them, it's almost like that.
You're on record. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, one of the biggest challenges that I have with clients is getting them to sit in front of the camera and talk normally, talk relax, and have a nice conversation with the camera. But if you are in front of a camera, if you're talking to someone who is also in front of a camera, you're looking at their face, it's a lot easier. So it's a nice tool, very, very good way to do that. There is Messenger, and that is essentially their version of Twitter. So if you want everyone in your circle, let's say everyone in this room loves Google Plus, and we all have an account. We said, you know what, let's meet up. We're all gonna add each other on our Google accounts, and then we can do it on our phones really fast. And we create a circle for this meeting. Then every time I want to contact everyone for this meeting, I can just hit that circle, send you all basically a short little message, like a text message, and it pops up. It's a push. It pushes to your phone. It says, hey, we're all going to meet at 12:30, whatever. And everyone gets it. And so everyone can respond and talk accordingly. Cool. So this is a really cool technology, and it is better than just about anything else out there, but it's Google. And so people are still kind of stepping back and going, let's just see what they do. Let's see exactly what they do. And honestly, Google does not care if you use it. They just want to make sure that you didn't turn off that privacy so they track everything you do to serve ads. That's how they want. All right. Then you can also do events. Think of it as the all-in-one solution, but it doesn't mean you can ignore the others. We're not there yet. Questions? Deer in headlights, or are we all got it? Got it. All right. Well, Twitter. I'm going to go over Twitter very quickly. Worth it for what are called social signals. Social signals. Most of what we do is getting our clients in front of more people more often. And that's what we always try to do that. We want them to get this choice. Now, that is getting harder and harder to do as Google changes their algorithm on how they decide who gets where in the search results. So the game changes constantly. And what we started to see towards the end of 2012 was that if we have these social signals from places like Twitter and Facebook and lots of other sources, we can get better search results. Or at the very least, maintain search results. So instead of bouncing around, we would lock in at the idea of a 1, 2, 3 position. So social signal has become a huge portion of getting found online. So in Twitter, you can just connect it to everything. So that you can do it one place and update Twitter, or Twitter one place update. You don't have to go log in, log out. You can usually find Twitter where you can do it all in one place. So it's absolutely worth it. I'm not going to read this whole thing to you. This was fascinating. This company is called Branded 3. They did one of the bigger studies that we've seen on how social signals, specifically Twitter, would affect search results. So they tracked hundreds of URL domains, hundreds of them, to find out if numbers of Twitter links to the URL, or tweets, however you want to call it, want to see if that had an impact on search results, and how many of those sightings, those URL sightings on Twitter, would create the impact. And it was pretty amazing. What they found was as long as you had 50 and no one else in your area had really any, you were going to have better search results than it. Once you start getting over 5,000 tweets, meaning your URL showed up somewhere in Twitter, you had 5,000, you had a huge jump in your search engine results. And if you had over 10,000, I mean, it's going to be hard to get. I have the late numbers. You're pretty much locked in to getting top positions just because you're on Twitter. So these numbers were based on huge markets, big net. This wasn't just local. This was on an international scale we were testing. So your numbers are a lot smaller. So you can get into that 50 range and just maintain constant use. You're going to be in really good shape. Questions about Twitter? No, 50 total. It was 50 total. Yeah. Now, if you get 50 per day, you tell me how you did that. That would be great. Yeah. No, we're always looking for reasons for people to what's called retweet. Right? Send that information to someone else. And each time that happens, it is another citation or social signal, and that counts. So you can do something once, and it might turn into 20.
So what kind of stuff should we eat? I mean, what is it people want to follow? And potentially through your events, go through fresh.
Yeah. So the question is, what do you tweet? How do you put stuff on Twitter that's 140 characters or less that has some value? And so I want you to think of it two ways. Number one is there's not a whole lot that you can tweet every single day, twice a day, that has some significant value. But every once in a while, you might want to put a link to your website on Twitter along with your valuable information. But I'll show you a calendar that helps you break out the kind of information you want to put out there that sorts things up for you. But the second way I want you to think about it is, no one's really going to be following the Yale office on Twitter because they're dying to know what's going on in the office every day. Okay? I would love for that to be true, but so what happens? Well, we push it out there, we promote a little bit, and we start looking for a couple of people that we can connect to via Twitter, and then we jump your numbers up to, we're not talking tens of thousands, a few hundred. But marketers understand that they need followers in order to have the possibility of these kinds of numbers. So there are tens of thousands of marketers that want to follow you so that you'll follow them back, so that everybody's numbers continue to rise. So it's just a whole bunch of marketers going, hey, that's great, tweet, yeah. So the value is not so much that somebody in your market is going, that was the best tweet I've ever seen, I'm going now. That's not going to happen. Okay? But somebody might go, hey, that was kind of cool, I'll share that, hoping that you'll notice they shared it, and you'll share something there. Anything else? Does that make sense? That's kind of why I went through Twitter kind of fast, because I really don't think that you're going to somehow be able to find the new Twitter. But it's cumulative effect. You don't want to pretend. You don't want to ignore it. You want to take advantage of that cumulative effect. Okay? Okay. Let's talk about Pinterest. Pinterest was really an amazing story. It came out of nowhere, and it's loaded. It is mostly women. Any men in here using Pinterest? Not one? Any women? And enthusiastically so. Okay, so that's why we look into it, right? We want to make sure that we look at everything. So it is mostly women in the market. So about fast, it is starting to slow down, but it is not dropping off. Right? It's massive growth phase is over. It's not dropping. Now Twitter has saw this sort of massive change, but it kept on growing and then it took a little drop off in level. Pinterest, we're kind of seeing this stable growth, and we're waiting for when that might drop off. But it's certainly worth looking at. Now, it's always a good idea to give people the ability to pin anything in yourself. Can't hurt, right? It doesn't mean you need to go and create a Pinterest account and figure out, okay, well, we're going to have 16 boards, and they're all going to be based on this. We're going to break. That's a lot of work. But you can certainly say, hey, I'd love for you to click on Pin app, share our logo, or share our message. Here's a great picture of our office with all of our smiling faces. Speaking of smiling faces now, I go back to this a lot. How many of you have pictures on your website, or on your brochure, or anything of your beautiful office empty? You're not raising your hand, and you know you're out there. Okay. And the reason I know is we do build websites, and I'm always asking for pictures of offices with people in them, and I almost never get them. And so I would say, I'll put it up, but you've got to get me those pictures. You don't want to display that your office is empty. Just call up friends and family, say, do me a favor, go around, we'll take a bunch of pictures, and we'll put them online. They don't have to be patients where you have to go get through these forms. And just friends and family, say, do you mind doing this? Fill up your office, fill people in the chair, and they don't have to, be laying back with their mouth open, like, just smiling faces, okay? Absolutely do that. And that's a great thing to have in your office, smiling faces, busy. Why not? Now, is that going to get shared over and over again? Probably not. But people that are already connected to you, connected to your office and your practice, they might, and it might have some value. And it took you all, 15, 20 minutes to set that up. Or a phone call to Telehouse, or Sesame, or any one of those companies. Say, can you put up your talk on something? Sure.
I just wanted to make a comment. I wanted to put something because I love. So I wanted to continue to do it.
Okay.
And so I wanted to link it to my Facebook page, to the business Facebook page. But you have that dummy page, and it links it. You know what I'm talking about? The page that's under, there's like that dummy page that runs the profile for the business. That's how it was set up. So it's a link it. can link it to the Twitter page, so I can't invite all my Facebook people. But yet, people are going, what are you guys paying? And I cannot believe how many other dental, orthodontists, chiropractors, all these people are in there. And like I have a whole section of desserts with teeth. Teeth cakes, teeth cupcakes, teeth cookies, braces cookies. There's a whole section with books that's all dental related, like, your first visit to dentist. There's a ton of dental stuff on Pinterest, fun stuff. And so, I don't know, I think too, that in the dental office, if we're on Pinterest ourselves and on your own personal Pinterest page, basically a staff member, you can do your dental, I'm a dental assistant pin section, and you just all that stuff, and you're not going to see it. And know you're working. There's a lot of cool dental stuff.
There is. And we're going to talk, I have a little thing on connecting. And it might just be you needed to go when you walk in, post as, and probably connected. Right, so you have to log into your profile in order to get access to your page, but you have to post as your page in order to connect. That might have changed. It's been a little while since I've personally done it.
But it's been a while since I've done it, so. But
check it out.
On Twitter, I can change it to, I would rather have it on Facebook page, then you can invite 200 or almost 300 people on Facebook.
Yeah, absolutely.
From Twitter. I mean, sorry, from Twitter to Facebook.
Yeah, let me show you exactly what I would recommend you do. I'll show you exactly. Okay. Yeah. Yes, I'm gonna finish this. We'll do the super cool thing, and then we'll take a break. Yeah. And I have just looked at myself at this 10 o'clock. Okay, so you create boards, be creative, don't focus on your business. This is about images. This is about fun. So be fun, don't be boring. Okay. My take is super cool. It keeps you looking fresh, so it's certainly worth considering and looking at. Very low possibility for return on investment. It's really hard to get an image to get someone to take an action, but it doesn't mean it's worthless. Still, it can have some value. There's so far no search engine optimization benefits that we've seen so far that you can't optimize. So you can optimize your images as you load them. There's a lot of things that you can do to optimize your Pinterest pages and boards and everything else. So this is a super cool Pinterest bonus. You set up a Pinterest account, connect your Pinterest to Facebook. Make sure that you do, when you log into Facebook, you're posting as your business, not you personally. And it should connect. Set up what's called Twitter feed. So you go to twitterfeed.com, set that up to pull from Pinterest. So now everything that you post on Pinterest will automatically be posted to Twitter and Facebook. So I'll save you a ton of time if you want to take advantage of Pinterest. Questions about that? Huh? Okay, let's take a break.